Simple little monotonic blues improvisation there for you. My name is Nick Schillace, and this is the second set of videos for the Solo Guitar Primer by Detroit Folk Workshop. The second section really gets us going towards the way that we're going to be finger picking going forward with all the other materials that I've developed in my finger picking book 1 and so on and so forth. It's the way that we're really going to be playing. The first section really just dealt with developing right hand through arpeggio style playing, and continuing to work on that's a good idea. Going forward though, like I said, we're going to kind of start talking about finger picking, and the monotonic bass style of playing is good for students that are unfamiliar with the style because it kind of focuses the thumb on one string as opposed to alternating strings. But it's really no different than alternating bass playing, and it's very effective. It's not really a beginner style. It's fun to play. It's a little bit more driving, and certain players really made a lot of good use out of it. Mance Lipscomb, Big Bill Brunzi. I mean, there's tons of players. So just generally, either way, if you play monotonic bass or alternating bass, however you want to describe it, you're going to be playing chord notes with the thumb consistently, and that's the thing that you want to remember. That's kind of your reference for whatever else you do against that steady downbeat. So I was just playing monotonic, which would just be the one note. So like for an E chord, it would sound like this. Okay, you can even move out of that position back here with your right hand and just do what's called like a dead thumb, where you really don't have an actual note, but you just have a frequency. And you can kind of do that and move up the neck. It's kind of like a washtub bass. I think sometimes with the washtub bass, it's just really like a frequency, or those porch boards. It's really not a tone, but it's just a frequency that will give the impression or sound of something lower with the notes that you're playing up above, like on the chord. But anyway, so the driving, one note. Okay, versus the alternating bass, which is, maybe I'm popping it a little bit different with the rhythm, but it's still just quarter notes. Monotonic. Alternating. So obviously there's some swing and stuff that changes a little bit, but you're still playing chord notes. It sounds very different. What I've noticed with students when they start to try to get into this style of playing is that the alternation is kind of what trips people up a little bit, and it's important to get that down. It's all about the thumb in this style, but it's if you're getting it twisted around and flipped around, like I say, then you're sort of missing the point in a manner. And so if you do a quarter note that's just the same note, the monotonic, then it's going to help you to develop just that consistent kind of mechanism of the thumb. And that's what you want. It's like, it's your backing band essentially. So in the book, in the beginning, I'm just going to take you through just different combinations of thumb and finger rhythms. So, focusing on the thumb and then maybe like a whole note. So you're always playing like a quarter note in the thumb, and then maybe we put like a quarter note in on the third string, or a whole note in on the third string, and we're keeping our fingers assigned just the same as we did in the first section. So index, middle, ring, or IMA on 3, 2, 1, and then the thumb is going to take care of 6, 5, and 4. So to do a whole note against the bass, it would sound like this. And if you want to, you can play a chord or whatever, but the exercises are set up the same way, like where you're going 6, 5, 4, 5. So actually, if you were to play the whole note on the third string, you would go like this, really. And so on. And then you maybe would do that on the second string. So on. and then half notes, quarter notes, same setup, and then there's some mixed rhythms, which is going to start to introduce syncopation. And so really like almost 99% of the time when you're playing in this style, you're really playing eighth notes, and you're either playing with the bass, so you're pinching, or you're playing a syncopated rhythm on the offbeat. However you want to think about it, sometimes say against the bass, maybe it's not the best way, but it's syncopated, so it's the and of an eighth note, so it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and if you put those two together with the pinch and the offbeat, it would sound like this. And that's really what you're going to want to focus on, especially in the introduction to the section with the different rhythms, is how to get the thumb and the fingers to work those different types of rhythms, eighth notes against quarter notes and that sort of thing. So it shouldn't be too hard. It's laid out pretty clearly. Again, it's all notation, but you're only playing open strings. So, get used to just sort of looking at notes. I mentioned before, I'm a proponent of note reading. I'm not anti-tab. I'm kind of anti-looking at the paper, to be honest with you. I just think that you need to absorb and memorize whatever you're going to really play. I mean, sometimes it doesn't always make sense to memorize because, you want to kind of get through the idea and move on to something else. But generally, if you want to perform something, or if you really want to get deep and do something more than just play, the basic idea, you want to memorize it so you don't have to, be stuck to the paper. After doing some basic, just right-hand patterns with the thumb and the fingers, there's a few songs per string set, I guess 6 string, 5th string, 4th string, where you're just sort of playing a monotonic quarter note, and then different sets of melodies on first the 3rd string, then the 2nd string, and then the 1st string. And it just kind of gets you moving around with the monotonic bass. So just to give you an example, the very first one is monotonic bass on the 6th string, and the melody on the 3rd string is called The Wise Man in the Mountain. And so it just goes like this. Nothing to it. And again, the focus is really on the thumb, trying to keep that consistent rhythm. Mostly just quarter notes and that sort of thing. Tab's probably going to be important for this. Even if you can read down here, we're going up the neck and stuff, and just try to memorize it. I mean, even if it's what we call micro memorization, where you're really just thinking about it and trying to memorize it right then and there. So if you can play it a little bit, a few times from memory, and then even if you forget it in 10 minutes or tomorrow or whatever, it's beneficial. That initial memorization is beneficial. And I think that it's something that you really want to try to cultivate early on. So those are good exercises. Come up with your own, improvise, do whatever you want, but keep that thumb driving. So the rest of the section, part 2, is just going to be focused on simple blues in a few different keys. In each key, you're going to play a non-syncopated blues and then a syncopated blues. So, say like in the key of A minor, the key of A, the key of E, I think G. I have to think about all the ones we have, but there's a good, chunk of tunes there, and I'll be playing those individually and talking briefly about them in just a series of videos after this one, just so you have some reference for your ear and you can see it. But this is really going to establish your right hand and establish a technique that is going to serve you well going forward. And I think that you'll find it really beneficial. So good luck with this. And of course, you can find me here, or you can find me at my website, nickschillace.com. And I'm available for online or in-person lessons, depending on where you're at. So good luck, and I hope to find it something that's beneficial.